I'm doing good. Sorry, I was a little late. Just got back from a meeting.
All good. I understand. Lots going on. How's Los Angeles treating you?
It's good. Yeah, it keeps me busy. Probably too busy.
Yeah, the move went well though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was easy.
Good. Glad to hear it. Are you able to get on video or would you prefer not to have video?
Probably prefer not to. I don't really have like a good setup for that.
Okay. All good. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Happy to have you. Uh, I want to ask you just about your media circuit. How's that been going? You've been doing a bunch of podcasts.
It's been good. Yeah, I kind of just say yes to everything right now. That's my strategy, and I guess people want to hear me talk about stuff, so I'm happy to do that. Um, so yeah, it's been good. I don't really have a way of measuring it, or I don't really have goals for it, but I try to, it lets me explore my own thoughts and figure out what I really believe. And so I think that has been a really great.
Nice. So you've just been agreeing to interviews just to kind of think through whatever you're doing next.
Exactly.
Nice. And what is next as far as you can tell?
Next is just working on Gumroad, trying to be more of a creator on a personal level, working on painting, writing. I just started working on a comic strip and working on an animated show concept. So yeah, just making a lot of stuff,
Nice.
trying to do what I want to do, basically.
As far as your writing goes, did you take a class with Brandon Sanderson?
I did.
Nice. How was that?
Did. It was great. It was awesome.
And as far as your TV series and all your writing, do you have any deadlines or plans for what you're going to do with it? Or are you creating for the sake of creating?
Um, that's a good question. I do have plans. They're long term, so I don't have anything in the next year, 2, 3 years. I have sort of super long term plans, and I have super short term plans, basically. But I don't really do things in the middle. I think it's really hard when these things are these outcomes are mostly out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
To a large degree. Like it's not up to me to make a show entire, not up to me entirely, at least. So it's yeah, I don't know. I'm still figuring it out, and I try not to have too much of too much expectations, I guess. Like my goals are mostly around learning,
Mm-hmm.
which I can control, and less so um about getting something made and out into the world, and um you know it like some outcome that requires a lot of folks
Right,
to.
like a product or something.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Certainly products, I think outcomes are a great way to measure if I'm doing the right stuff, like if I'm learning the right things. But in terms of yeah, in terms of just goal setting, I've found that they don't particularly help. Like saying, I want to release a music album by the end of the year, um, is a great check, but really, I think it's more like you should be making music every day. You know,
Yeah.
that's in your control. That's something that you can sort of, that doesn't feel as scary and as like I need to have a music video at the end of the day.
Right. How is painting going?
It's going well. I mean, same thing. As long as I paint, I'm happy. I had a great start of the year. I was painting like 4 or 5 times a week, which was pretty awesome from life too. I think I got a lot better, and I continue to get better. My goal now in LA is to try to do more plein air painting. Again, I took a big break from plein air painting and just did portraits and figure and stuff, which I'll try to do here too. But and then I also want to focus on imagination, coming up with things out of my head, which is brutally
What's
difficult and like
yeah,
way harder than just taking something that you see in front of you and trying to you know
recreate it.
yeah, or not recreate it entirely, but depict it in some form.
Who do you have like role models or favorite artists that you try to learn from?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, a ton of them. If you just go to the people I follow on Instagram, you'll see most of them. But I really like Suchicha Bosley. I really like a lot of dead painters, like Sargent. Um, is really great. I mean, to me, it's less about like learning from a specific painter. I learn from like specific paintings. Like if I go to a museum, I don't really care about who painted what. Most
Hmm.
of the people, you don't know their names unless they're incredibly famous.
Right,
But you can certainly learn stuff from specific paintings, and mostly just like what do I like, uh,
right.
and yeah, what attracts me to a certain painting, and getting a pulse on what that is really helpful when when you decide, okay, like I have a day to paint whatever I want. What what do I want to paint? You have a blank canvas. Like what do you want
Right.
to paint?
Seems to be like really personal fulfillment as far as the creativity goes.
That's all there is. I mean, with
Yeah.
everything, I mean, if you're not feeling personally fulfilled with what you're doing, to me, it's like, time is the most valuable resource we have. And so if we're not spending, if you sort of expect to sort of trade that, at some point, um, for, personal fulfillment in the future, I think that's a risky proposition.
Right.
And certainly some people have to, they just don't have the option. I think I'm really lucky in that I do have that option where I can do what I love to do, um, make money doing it, find personal fulfillment, uh, and make a living doing that. I mean, that's why I started Gumroad, right? Is I
Right.
wanted
And that's
more people
where I
to get.
think a lot of people are trying to get to.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I talk to creators all the time, basically every day, and it's funny how like they're just like, yeah, I kind of just want to do what you're doing, which is kind of funny because a year ago or 2 years ago, I would have not not thought that at all.
What do you think it's particularly hard for the average person to get to where you're at as far as doing what they want to do and getting paid for it?
I don't think it's hard. I think it's certainly possible. I think it's incredibly. It requires a lot of time. It requires a lot of effort. It requires like a lot of studying and discipline. But I believe that like everyone can get to this point. I think that's a possibility for sure.
In talking to all the creators that you've met, is there a recurring obstacle that a lot of them face?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, it depends on the stage. Like some creators really struggle with like being disciplined about
Hmm.
producing stuff and being prolific. Um, some people are really concerned about building an audience. They really struggle with that aspect of it. It really depends. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything that I would say the hardest thing is for people to just keep going. Like I think for people to really recognize that this can be a really long. I mean, I started Gumroad 8 years ago. That's a
Hmm.
long time.
Yeah.
And so if I'd said, hey, you can do it, you can totally earn a living doing what you love in 8 years. But to do that, you're going to have to work 60 hours a week for 8 years to get to that point. Um, I think a lot of people would not do that, would not make
Right.
that bet. Um, and that, it is what it is.
And you started when you were 19?
Started Gumroad specifically?
Um, I guess trying to work towards doing what you want to do and getting paid for it.
I started probably when I was 13 or 14.
13. How did you start then?
Yeah, I learned web design and I started doing freelance web design when I was around 13 or 14 years old.
Were you in the Bay Area for that?
No, I was not. I wasn't even living in the US.
Oh, okay.
But
Where
that's the
were you?
beauty of doing that, you don't
Right.
have to live. And I never met. I mean, I couldn't have met any of my clients online or in person. It would have been weird
Where
given
were
I was
you?
13. I grew up in Singapore.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so 13 started web development, and then when did you move to the States, and what was that like?
I moved to the States for college in 2010 when I was 17, almost 18. And what do you mean what was it like specifically?
I think I'm curious, did you finish college?
No, I only did one semester.
Got it. And then went over to Pinterest.
Yep, exactly. So I got an offer to work at Pinterest, um, and then dropped out to do that. Yeah, so yeah, it was funny because I didn't really that wasn't the plan initially.
Right.
Wasn't really expecting that was going to happen so quickly. Um, but it did.
Did you know
uh,
what you were getting into?
uh, what do you mean getting into?
As far as just you dropped out of college, it's, to many, that's a risk. Did you know that it
Um,
was potentially going to be lucrative?
um, I don't think it was a risk, to be honest. I think I was spending money to go to school
Yeah.
and I was getting paid to work at Pinterest. So to me, it was not a risk at all. And you can always go back, right? Like if the startup doesn't work, like you can, just go back to school. They'd be happy to have me again. So
Right.
I never really considered it a risk. Yeah, I think that is not. I think some people might. There's a difference between like I like to say there's a difference between scary and dangerous, and I think people confuse the two. Just because something's scary doesn't mean it's risky. Um, so I think people are scared of dropping out of school potentially, but I don't think it's necessarily a risky thing to do.
Hmm. Do you think how often do you see people who manage to do Gumroad full time as far as creators go?
Um, it really depends. I mean, I don't really know because some people can go full time making $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
It's really sort of dependent on where they live and their lifestyle, and if they have dependents and a family to support and things like that. Last month we had, I think, a little under 800 people make $1,000 or more. Some people made a lot more than that.
Hmm.
Um, Hundreds of thousands of dollars. But yeah, if you measure it by people that have made a couple thousand or more, which I think is reasonable, sort of most people don't live in San Francisco, New York, or LA
Right.
or something like that. I would say probably a few hundred people.
Okay. So it's possible, but a little bit of a small crowd.
Well, that's just on Gumroad,
Oh yeah, of
right?
course. Yeah.
So I would guess that it's also, I mean, it's how you define doing what you love, and how you define earning a living. I mean, if you, I would say I was doing that when I was full time employed at Pinterest. I was doing what I loved and earning a living
Hmm.
doing that, right? And so there's a much broader. I think hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people already there. Um, if you love driving a truck around the United States, which I'm sure
You've
people
made it. Yeah.
and you do that, and you're living doing it, then you're doing it. So I try not to be sort of super sort of specific on what that means. Like, I don't want to say, oh, everyone needs to be making music or art or painting or drawing 24/7. And if they're not doing that, like, they're not really a creator, or they're not really, where they need to be if they want to be fulfilled and happy. Um, for me, it's just like, are people happy, and do they have freedom to do what they wish to do? And if they had an extra few $1,000s a month, would they fundamentally change their existence? And if
Hmm.
the answer is no, they'd roughly be doing what they're doing today. Then I think that's great.
With creators on Gumroad, I noticed that like education is one of the more popular uh, things being sold. Would you say that what's the most successful product that you've seen being sold on your platform?
I mean, it's really diverse. I mean, people have
Yeah.
made millions of dollars selling all sorts of stuff. A lot of educational content, like video tutorials and courses and workshops, webinars, and the ilk. We've had people do super well in selling productivity tools and software and apps and brushes, like tools for creative professionals mostly. We've had people sell merchandise and do really well, like t-shirts, and things like that. We've had people sell music. I was just with a creator last night. Um, Wolfpack, they've made a good chunk of money selling music and merchandise and other stuff to their fans and their audience. Um, Before that, this weekend I was hanging out, or actually yesterday too. I was painting with YouTube, Stan Prokopenko, who does these drawing uh, tutorials and does super super well doing that. So it really is all over the place, and it's tricky sometimes when I have to describe like what Gumroad does and for whom, because it is like an incredibly broad. We don't have a majority category, like like
Right. That's what I'm gathering. It's a bit all over the place.
yeah, exactly. And it's been really fun. We've been going around the country doing creator dinners to celebrate our top 25 creators in the major metropolitan areas in the U.S. And it's just kind of cool to get all these very different people in a room together, and they're surprised often,
Uh-huh.
by who else is there, because they kind of expect perhaps that everybody everybody on Gumroad is sort of doing something kind of similar to them, but often that's not the case. It's all over the place.
Do you have any memorable moments from these dinners or particular stories that you liked?
Um, I really enjoy hearing about how people discovered Gumroad, and I also really enjoy how long it takes, and like how Gumroad fits into their journey. It's not like the thing, like they've tried to make this happen for a long period of time. They've put in a lot of work outside of just using Gumroad, and so I just like it's sort of humbling to realize that like Gumroad is a piece of this really important puzzle for them, but it's not everything. And I really like knowing that, and it gives me context on how I want to build Gumroad going forward. It's also cool to just discover some of the products that have done super well on Gumroad. Last week, I met a Gumroad creator who sells a font called Open Dyslexic, which is for people that have dyslexia and other things similar to that. And it's a font that sort of is designed specifically for people like that. And it's just cool, it's just cool to meet people and see uh, what they do. And sometimes it's incredibly surprising.
Yeah, I imagine. As far as art and selling art, I interview creators as well. And a lot of them have trouble putting a price on the thing that they made. And I'm wondering if you have any recommendations for how to value the art that you produce.
I mean, pick a price.
Yep.
Doesn't matter, um, because that's probably not the last thing that you sell. So Yeah, I really don't think it matters too much. I think people's uh, 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 debating stuff like that. I think just sell it for $5 or $50 or $500,
See what
and
happens.
through that process, you're going to learn if it was too high or too low, and then you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again, and then you figure it out. You know, um, I think another strategy, if I really think that's the best strategy, is to just pick a random price and start from there. Another strategy is just to copy somebody else. If you want
Right.
to sell oil paintings that are 9 by 12, like go figure out someone who's relatively the same stage quality subject matter as you are and steal their prices. You know, just use those and then change based on that. But you're doing the same thing, right? So you're just picking a slightly more sophisticated, better initial price, and then you're modifying it from there.
Right.
I think the other option is to figure out, okay, how much money do you want to make? Do you want to make $10,000 a month? Cool. How many audience members do you think will buy a product from you every single month? I would say, let's say for most people, they're going to say 500 people. I'm like, cool. So $20.
And then you're done.
That's start there, and then you can modify from there. You can have tiers. You can have some for 5 and some for 500. But the most important thing is to start. And I always talk to creators that are just scared of starting. They're like almost looking for an excuse for me not to start. And I'm always just like, just start. Just start. I don't know. Um, everyone is different, like you're selling to a totally different audience than someone else might be. Like subject matter is different. Your style is different. Um, your audience is different. I don't know. It's just like there's so many variables. It's just like when people ask me like, how much money will I make if I sell on Gumroad? And I just say it as nothing, as up to $5 million. It depends. I mean, it depends on a lot of different things. Just get
Who?
started, and then you don't have to ask me anymore.
Right. Gotta try it. You just gotta, it's that, just test it out and get real world results. I think that's what your Twitter is always pushing. It's like, you just need to start.
Yeah, my Twitter can get really repetitive, but it's because I have the same conversations a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And my Twitter is kind of just like a proxy for the conversations I have in real life. And so yeah, if I end up talking to the same, 3 or 4 people, and they're all like, hey, I don't know if I'll be a good musician. I don't know. And I'm like, have you tried it?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I don't. And I'm like, well, then you won't know then. I mean, how else? I mean, there's only one way to find out, right? Like, I don't know, maybe there's a test you can take on the internet that will tell you if you're going to be a really good painter. But my prediction is that if you paint for a long time, you will be a good painter. I mean, it's a choice. Do you want to be a good painter or not? Uh, I think every single human being on planet Earth can be an incredible painter. Um, I really believe that because we can all see. I mean, not all of us, I guess, so maybe not, but
Mhm.
a majority. And so if you can see the world, and if you have opinions, which we all have opinions, um, you know, yeah, you can be a phenomenal painter for sure.
As far as your platform, you really push for, like I was reading your tweets about learning how to code is a good way to like start making money and just then have the freedom to pursue doing what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you have any ideas of what the future of work looks like? Because I think I also saw a tweet that you think remote work is stylish right now, but not really going to last. What do you think the future of work ideally looks like?
Yeah, that's a good question. My guess is that the future of work is going to shift to a more decentralized, a more independent, a lot more small businesses, a lot more software involved and enabled businesses. Inherently, that's going to mean more remote um, work, more flexible work. I think the sort of the 9 to 5, the 5 days a week, the office, the commute, those trappings of work that we have in our society today are going to fade out over time for a lot of people, and it's I really don't believe in predicting the future. I just
Mm-hmm.
believe in, like, observing the present. And if you observe the present, you'll see these trends. They're not crazy shocking trends or anything like that, and they've typically happened in places like San Francisco and New York before they happen elsewhere, mostly because I think both a combination of a lot of the technology is built in these places, and so sort of they're the experimental test beds for it, but then also because it's just expensive. And so if you're looking for ways to save money to build businesses, and some people disagree on that as a motivation for remote work, but I think at the end of the day, if you're trying to build a business and there's a way to save money to do that, because building a business is really hard, um, remote work is a great way to save money.
That gives me hope, because I also like to think that we're headed towards more small, decentralized businesses. It gives like hope to people like me. I'm a barista. I'm doing podcasts and videos as much as I can, and I'm hoping for like to gain the skills that I can start doing this full time.
Mm-hmm.
And and this isn't a completely remote job.
Not yet. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, like you can live in America, which is, still a pretty if you compare it to all the other countries, like a pretty expensive place to live, but you can live
Mhm.
in America for easily less than $500 a month.
Really?
Oh yeah, easily. And so you just gotta, if it's a yeah. So if you can, if I, I believe remote work will be incredibly more popular. So, uh, imagine. Yeah, imagine what you could do if how much art you could make. All you got to do is find a job that, pays $15 an hour and do that 10 hours a week. And as long as you're comfortable living, not,
Crappy. Yeah.
you're not living in a downtown area. I think you could live fine. You spend a couple hundred bucks on groceries, and you spend $100 on your car and things, and you spend the rest on the other 200 to $300 on rent. I see places all the time. I mean, when I lived in Utah, I would, you could drive 15 minutes from where I lived and find places where the rent was less than $300 a month.
See, I think the problem with me is I've been living in like Seattle and
Yeah, totally.
everything's totally off as far
So
as
yeah,
pricing goes.
you're not living in a real place.
A real place.
A real place meaning just like when you talk to the vast majority of humans,
Hmm.
they're gonna think of it like a fantasy landscape or something like that.
Got it. Sometimes it does feel like that.
Yeah. So I don't mean it in any derogatory sense. I live in Burbank, which is,
Oh yeah, all good.
but
Uh,
yeah.
who are like, just to wind down, I'm curious who your role models or any of your mentors are. Like, who are the people that inspire you at this moment?
Good question. I really like Donald Glover,
Yeah, so creative.
Kim Kardashian, and Kanye West. Um, I really think a lot. I think, I mean, I'm just in general right now. Uh, I try to, because I am in this like weird new phase of my life where I can kind of do whatever I want, and so I'm trying to figure out what that means. And so I try to observe other people that have been there, in this way. And so I think, yeah, people like them, I think they just create a lot of cool stuff, and they probably spend a lot of their time in their own head, and I think there's a lot to learn from people like that, and they do stuff. I mean, they, Kim Kardashian becoming a lawyer and everything. I think that's amazing, and so yeah, it kind of gives me a lot of inspiration, a lot of things to think about. I wish they tweeted more so I could be inside their head a little bit more, but I'll take what I can get.
So do you think you follow more artists than like developers or like tech entrepreneurs then?
Yeah, actually. I mean, well, the thing is, like, I'm a pretty okay tech entrepreneur. So I don't know at this point, like, I don't really know what I'd be learning from a tech entrepreneur, you know? Like,
Right.
I think tech entrepreneurship, especially advice on in these accessible formats, like, I totally hang out with tech entrepreneurs all the time. That's probably the group I hang out with the most, just because that's the industry I'm in. But in terms of what you see on the internet, it's mostly, just because the top of the funnel is large, much larger than anywhere else on the funnel, and the top of the funnel is, people starting companies trying to find product market fit, right? And so the vast majority of the advice is directed to people like that, and I'm not there. Like, I have product market fit, we're growing, and so the problems that I face on a weekly basis, monthly basis are, they're not really, it's not like I can go on Twitter and like learn about them. That would be a very inefficient way of solving my problem. I think those things are great when you don't know what problems you're going to have, or even, what you should be thinking about. Like, for me, with music or with animation or with painting, I don't even know what I should be thinking about. And so spending time on Twitter and stuff for that is amazing. But yeah, I don't spend any time on Twitter. It's funny because some people think I do because I tweet a lot.
You tweet so much.
Um, I only tweet twice a day.
Consistent.
Yeah, I mean, it takes 10 seconds to tweet. And I come up with all my tweets ahead of time, so I'm not tweeting real time most of the time. So yeah, I actually spend less time on Twitter now than I ever have, because it's impossible for me to go on Twitter now because I just have too many notifications.
Right.
So I actually don't read Twitter. Yeah, I don't read Twitter at all. I spend more time looking at artists on Instagram now.
Is that the main media you're consuming, is artists through Instagram? Are you also like watching TV series, or what kind of stuff are you consuming?
The most I consume is books. Yeah, so just books on my Kindle or physical books. And then just a lot of conversations. That's it. I don't really, it's funny because I don't listen to podcasts.
Yeah, I think if you have enough interesting people to talk to, you're probably okay.
Yeah, I feel like my life is a podcast,
Yeah. I sympathize with that. I feel like my life's a sitcom sometimes.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think, and it's like the thing with consuming is you're being told what to think and what to think about. And I know what I want to think about, so it's like, if it's kind of like, if you're looking for, I don't know, like a new desk, you're not going to go on Twitter for that desk, are you? That would
No.
be a very inefficient way. And so for me, it's like I kind of know what I want to do now, and so um when I'm in that mode, I think social media is a very ineffective tool. So are podcasts. I mean, I listen to podcasts certainly, but not people. Like, I don't listen to a specific podcast. Like, if there's a certain person that I met or I'm meeting and I want to learn about them or something like that, then I'll go listen to a specific episode with them in it, or something like that. But I think in general, like, there's very few, even authors. I don't know. There's maybe less than 10 that I would read every book that they release.
On that note, this will be my last question. Thanks again for coming on. It's been great talking to you. What would you say are maybe like 5 books that you've read? They could be recently or just throughout your life that you would recommend.
The best book that I've read recently is this book called The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo,
Okay.
and I've been recommending it basically to everybody that asks me. It's phenomenal. Um, that's that's the best book I've ever read probably in the last couple of years.
Nice.
Before that, The Fifth Season was really great by N.K. Jemisin. Um, really, really good book. And then there are a lot of the sci-fi classics that have really informed a lot of the way that I think, like Dune or Foundation. Um, Ishmael is really phenomenal. The Golden Compass is a phenomenal book. Um, I think that's five.
Yeah. So a lot of sci-fi, a lot of fiction. It seems like is what's grabbing
Yeah, yeah. I don't recommend nonfiction, to be honest,
you. Why is that?
because I think that's what everyone wants. Everyone asks me what books that they should read, but I feel like so many people just want to be told to read Sapiens or Skin in the Game or
Right.
all these books. And to me, the test of asking for a recommendation is that you're going to follow through on the recommendation. And so if someone asks me what book they should read and I tell them The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and they don't read it, to me that's
Why were they asking?
exact. Yeah. So for me, it's like I believe it is the best book that I've read in the last couple of years. And so I always if you want nonfiction, I mean, you can get plenty of those recommendations on
Right.
all the time. And so for me, it's like you know my assumption is that you're probably familiar with a lot of the books that I would be recommending if I was recommending nonfiction, and so I try to avoid it.
I respect that. I worked in several bookstores, and recommendations get harder and harder since we have so many options, and the list grows so long that at some point I don't think I'm going to read anything anyone recommends.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, I think it's just kind of like it's like a small talk or something. People are
Right.
doing it to do it. Um, yeah, I don't even ask for recommendations anymore because I know I'm not going to do it. Like I'm not going to follow through. I have enough of a list of things that I need.
Right. You're internally driven.
Yeah, yeah, and like I think for me, like if I have 4 hours free, I could write, I could paint, I could watch Netflix, I could listen to a podcast. Like it's hard for me to choose the latter two. If I could be creating, I'm probably gonna pick that.
Nice.
Or do nothing almost. I'd rather just do nothing.
Underrated.
There's a
I
lot to
think more
learn.
people need to hop on that.
Yeah, it's kind of become a meme almost on Twitter, but I think it's a meme for a reason. I think there's a lot to learn from just spending time in your own head.
Well, on that note, I think we got everything that I was looking to ask you. I appreciate it
Awesome.
again. And what you got planned for the rest of today?
Um, I got. Let's see. Let's open up my calendar. I got another podcast interview. Um, Almost done with them. I'm running out, so that's exciting.
Okay.
Um, and then I have dinner with another creator turned entrepreneur at night, and then I have a call with a conference I'm speaking at, the Lean Startup Conference in San Francisco in October or September, October I think. Um, and so I have a call with them to discuss what I'm going to talk about and the format and everything like that.
Very cool. Well, Godspeed.
I'll work on Gumroad too somewhere
Oh,
along the
yeah. When you can.
line. Exactly.
Great. Well, take it easy. Thanks again, Sahil, and
You're
I'll see
welcome.
you on the internet.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.